One day I woke up and I started to think about my separation. And I thought, this isn't right. This is not the way life is meant to be. Life is meant to be as follows. Picture it. You study hard at school. You get into a good university. You do a good course. Perhaps you follow in the family footsteps. After or maybe during college, you meet a nice girl or you meet a nice guy. Maybe you date a while, then you get a job. Perhaps you meet the love of your life and you get married. You progress in that job, you buy a house. You move into the house, it has a white picket fence. After a couple of years, you have 2.5 children. And then you progress higher in the company, you eventually retire, you live a few years playing golf in Florida maybe, and then you die. This to me is what was sold to me. When I look at Hollywood movies, when I look at books that I read, there was always this idea of this is how it's meant to be. You have to or you should go to college or learn a trade. You have to get a good job. You have to buy a house. You have to have a relationship. Okay, whether you get married or not is nowadays doesn't matter, but you have to have this. And then you show your success by what you have. Remember I said about the nice car, the nice house. This, I believe, is the lie that has been fed to us. And I believe sometimes a lot of people don't realize that maybe there's, as we've been talking about, more to life. So we expect that we should have all of these things. And if we don't have these things, we don't have success. Now I realized, I suppose when I got my separation and my divorce, I realized it was okay that I didn't follow in the pattern. It was okay. Some people, it works well for them. Some people are married for 50 years and that's great. For other people, it doesn't work. But that doesn't mean you have to continue to maybe go down a path that you're not happy with. It's the same with your job. You don't have to progress to be team manager and then assistant manager and then manager and then regional manager and then director. Sometimes what happens is this is what we believe we have to do. We believe we have to follow these steps in order to live a fulfilling and successful life. But that's not always the case. So what I'm here to tell you is that maybe you've been fed a lie. And I don't mean that in some sort of they are lying to you, but it's what has been accepted. It's what has become the norm. And we see people who maybe are writers, maybe are more creative, maybe don't do a 9-to-5 job. And a lot of people look at them and say, well, they're not a success because they're not in a job. They're not a manager of a company. They're not a director of a company. They're not successful. But they've chosen a different path. So there's no right or wrong. If you decide to go down the path that is accepted, or you decide to take a different path, or let's say you're a director of a company now and you decide, I'm going to go to Honolulu and have a surf shack. That's perfectly fine. You have to sort of look at your life and see, where do I want to go? How do I want to plan my life? And, as I've said, what is my definition of success? There perhaps has been a lie, and I put that in inverted commas, that you have been fed, that you have believed, that you have seen on the TV, but it's okay to move and to open your mind and say, well, what else is there? Now, perhaps you will say, well, maybe what is really useful for me and my wife or my husband is, let's give it up. Let's go traveling. Let's leave the corporate world behind. And let's just do what we want to do rather than what we believe we should do or what is expected of us. So you could also have lied to yourself. You could have said, I'm actually really happy in my relationship. I'm really happy in my job. But again, deep down, it's that feeling that I keep telling you, that why is it happening now feeling in your, maybe it's in your stomach, maybe it's in your head, but maybe you've been lying to yourself as well. So think about that, and sometimes that can be a difficult question to answer because you're going to say, I don't want to say I've been lying to myself because that wouldn't be right. But maybe you have, and that is okay. That's the first thing I want to say to you. It's okay if you suddenly now start to think and reflect, and suddenly you think, maybe I'm lying to myself. It's perfectly okay. But now is the time to start to change. The next lecture, we're going to take a little peek behind the wizard's curtain. And I'm going to tell you what that means.